Hello, everyone. My name is Gitika Gorthy, and today I'm very honored and excited to be interviewing a very special space champion, Miss Christine Rincon. Christine is a critical care nurse and paramedic specializing in high-stakes clinical operations for austere environments. Currently a research fellow at the Advanced SpaceLife Research Institute, she investigates human factors in space reproduction and was a NASA Space participant designing technology to extend medication shelf life for long duration missions. As a critical care transport educator at the Healthcare District of Palm Beach County, Christine trains first responders in advanced airway management and invasive procedures and created the internal critical care paramedic certification for the ground transport program. Her background spans flight nursing, level one trauma resuscitation, and trauma ICU leadership. Daisy Award winner and IIAS student, Christine bridges the gap between aerospace engineering and clinical reality. She is a member of the Aerospace Medical Association nursing arm, the OSMED NICE Committee program director, and is the research and education chair for the Women in Aerospace Medicine. He has written articles on rural health stressors and space topics and is dedicated to ensuring that as humanity heads to the stars, we also take world-class clinical standards with us. As you can see, Christine is a true space champion, and she's actually the first space nurse that I've interviewed on our channel so far. And I'm so excited to learn about her journey and what sparked her interest for combining space and nursing together. So, welcome, Christine. Thank you so much for taking your time to inspire the next generation of aerospace leaders.
You so much for inviting me. I'm so happy that you did. And I just want to say that I love Ignited Thinkers mission and I like to talk to any organization that likes to bridge space for all and also inspire the youth. So that's great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the moment I read your background, I was like, I've never interviewed someone who has this unique background and interest. And so I'm very curious. I have so many questions for you. But to just kind of start us off, I wanted to ask about your typical day. Generally, when I ask this question, nobody really has a typical day because I'm sure every day is different. I'm sure, especially in the medical field for you. But I'm curious, how do you generally structure your days? Because you're part of so many different organizations. So how do you make time for everything?
So that's a great question. I actually don't know. I'm just kidding. I have like kind of two hats that I wear. So both of them actually like fit together well. During the day, like you said, I'm working as a critical transport educator. So that is like the side of me where I'm the most clinical. So I keep like my finger on the pulse of like what's going on in medicine still. A lot of my day there is meetings and emails and those kind of like administrative things. I do train and educate the paramedics and the EMTs. I also, like you said, created the critical care paramedic program over there. So a lot of it is training, doing scenarios, hands-on, as well as like verbal trainings, those kind of things. I also do like chart audits where I'll look at like the charts of the paramedics and I'll like go through it and see, okay, why did you make this decision? Those kind of things. Um, that's during the day. And then afterwards, that's when I do a lot of the like my passion stuff. So like the aerospace stuff. Like you said, I'm a member of a couple of committees, so I'm kind of all over the place with that. I was actually invited to write for a upcoming aerospace nursing textbook. Shout out to Dr. Aubrey Florum, so I'm excited about that. So I did the chapter on acute care and trauma. So that's kind of keeping me busy now. I also help with the OSMED NICE committee, which is the international arm of OSMED. And a lot of that is, reaching out to people, going on LinkedIn, making connections, networking, and that's kind of like how I met you also. So, uh, that's really, and on top of that, I have two children. So I have to carve out some of that day for them and my husband, and so I'm kind of all over the place. I don't know if there's enough hours in the day, but I get it done somehow.
That's amazing. That's all that matters, right? You're making time for things you absolutely love. And I think your passion really shines through. And so you kind of briefly touched on this, but you have been kind of involved with different research initiatives and bringing in your unique nursing perspective into aerospace medicine, which I think is a very growing field, even for just physicians. So bringing in a nursing perspective is very critical. So I am curious, could you share a little bit more about some of the research projects you've been a part of? And maybe how like your nursing perspective and experiences have brought in like a unique lens to some of the situations that astronauts or people in extreme environments undergo.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you've had a couple of space medicine people on here. So as of right, I'll just do this like briefly. As of right now, it's a very physician-based like medical atmosphere right now, which in the era of low Earth orbit and things like that is like perfectly fine. So you have like the doctor that's on Earth reaching out to the people in the space station, like the International Space Station, and it works that way. The engineers build the rockets, and so on and so forth. But as we start to look forward towards going to Mars, there's a difference between reaching the International Space Station in a few minutes versus reaching Mars and I'm talking about like radio, um, in like up to an hour. I think it may be a little bit longer. um, Forget about how long it will take us to get there. So they're starting to turn their attention towards Earth independent operations. Like, how can we do this without
Right.
being able to contact mission control?
Yeah.
And I've been to a few, with my interest, I've been to a few conferences, and the way that they're starting to turn is, well, we need to train an AI to be able to
Yeah.
learn the protocols and then teach the person on the ship or the crew medical
Right.
officer on the ship how
Mm.
to do these things. And me as a nurse and paramedic, as in my paramedic role, sometimes when I'm able to get on the truck, we work under protocols. So the physician creates protocols, and then we follow them or deviate from them depending on how the situation calls for. And I've learned there that there is no protocol that is 100% perfect. So sometimes you have to look at the patient and do what the patient needs. Um, so I'm already seeing that kind of like, hmm,
Yeah.
I think that they can write a protocol for every situation. And if we're Earth independent and we can't look at the patient and be like, my protocol doesn't say anything about this, there needs to be someone that has like the critical care mindset or the enough medical knowledge to say, hey, no, like I know the protocol says this, however, the patient is presenting this way. And that is like a long way of saying that I am worried that in focusing so much on AI, that we forget that there's a person there. And we as nurses are trained in person-centered care, right? And when I was looking at a lot of the um like illnesses that astronauts get, it's a lot of like common things like once they start floating around and their spine elongates a little bit, their back starts hurting. um they get maybe the first day or two they get nauseous, from motion sickness, and there's a lot of trouble sleeping on the ship, I mean on the space station also, because the circadian rhythm is off, because you don't know where the sun is, and all the noise in the space station and things like that. And right now they have a big formulary with all the medications that they take, but nurses are literally trained in those person-centered things. As a nurse, when I look at somebody that's having trouble sleeping, I don't think take a zolpidem, right? I think let's do sleep hygiene, right? Let's, you know, turn the lights down. Let's, I mean, we can't really quiet the scenario in the space station, but there's things that you can do before you start, medicating people. Um, so those are the things that nurses think that maybe is missing from the conversation. I um I was at the thing that solidified it for me was that I was at a presentation with Dr. Chris Lenhart. He's a big flight surgeon. You know him. Everybody knows him. He's big time. And I literally asked him when he was taking questions, is there any conversation in including nurses in space travel? And and he's the guy that's focused on Earth independent missions. So he's thinking far ahead, right? And he told me, I would love to say yes, but the answer is no. And before, that answer would have probably destroyed me. But now I hear that and I'm like, okay, so let's make it happen then. So,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that perspective. And I think that is a really key critical difference. I mean, as an aspiring physician myself and someone who's interested in aerospace medicine, I've shadowed a lot of different types of doctors and different specialties. And I've also had the chance of obviously seeing so many different nurses. And they have, although they bring in the same medical knowledge, their interaction with patients is completely different. And their practical experience in a hospital is very different. And so I like looking at that situation, I can definitely connect the dots of what you're saying about the nurse having more of this patient focused experience and something maybe not prescriptive, things that don't generally follow a textbook. And so, yeah, that is a really cool point. And I wonder if they're going to integrate some of this into what they do provide on those protocols or train their AI. I'm sure they would love to have a nurse's perspective and all the things that they are taking into account as they develop these systems. So medicine will be interesting, and incorporating a nurse's perspective on that will be critical. So I hope we can do a better job of including all the medical specialties and voices into this field.
yeah, that's
And
awesome. And I definitely feel like if I yell into the void loud enough, somebody would be like, "Hey, do you want to come and help me figure this out?" Yeah, let's do
100%.
it.
I will be manifesting for you, and I completely agree. And that kind of
Yes,
brings me
girl.
to my yeah, and that kind of brings me to my next question as well. I was really intrigued with. I found out that you were founding or two organizations, the Space Nurse and the Space Nurse Academy. Which is so, first off, congratulations. That's huge. And I think this is something that will spark a conversation that's so important and will include a group of individuals who may be interested but didn't know how to get involved into this game. So could you share a little bit more about what the Space Nurse and the Space Nurse Academy is and kind of what sparked your interest and passion for starting it? Because I mean, I'm sure it's evident, but I am curious about what the story was for you to start them and what your goals are with these organizations.
Definitely. So the Space Nurse is my organization, and the mission of the Space Nurse is twofold. So it has two arms. So it has the advocacy arm where it's talking to aerospace organizations, flight surgeons, engineers, specifically like systems engineers, and just kind of like letting them know at this level, kind of letting them know, hey, we're here. Because a lot of the things that I've been seeing is that they just don't know that they need us yet. So a lot of it is changing their perspective. A lot of um the old guard, right, of medicine is kind of like, well, nurse do the tasks, right? And that was certainly like what we used to think. In medicine now, it's different. But there is definitely like an old guard that's still kind of like, oh, the nurses just do the tasks, right? And I actually have run into some people that have like commented on my posts on LinkedIn that's like, well, yeah, the nurses are kind of a luxury right now, in remote medicine. We don't really have that. And because they think that we just do the tasks. Um, so my job is to show them, no, we're scientists and we really know what we're doing when it comes to the patient. So that's one, my advocacy arm. And then on the other side, it's um, talking to nurses, letting them know, yes, you are what they need. You just need to speak a different language, right? So, on the one hand, there's nurses like me that have always been interested in space and dove right into this, right? But then there's other nurses that are like PhDs and academics and things that are extremely smart and they would be great for this, right? There's a big push for nursing innovation. So these are nurses that are starting to invent medical devices. That would be amazing because NASA is always looking for technologies to fix, they're always looking for technologies to fix their research gaps. But nurses don't know this. So, because it's not like you look at the rocket launch and it's like, okay, cool, that's amazing. Okay, engineers,
Right.
because that's what they're pushing forth. Like, come if you're thermodynamics and propulsion and come work for NASA, which obviously that's fine. So it's kind of one, letting nurses know you are really good for this so that they can say, okay, what else do you have? And then teaching them, not giving them a whole new set of skills because they already have it, giving them maybe a different language and giving them like the knowledge of, okay, you already know the human body from head to toe. Now, here's a little bit of how gravity affects it. Once you have that knowledge, you can move on to different things. So the Space Nurse Academy came from, okay, I'm just gonna stop waiting for this training to be available, and I'm just gonna make it myself.
Love that.
So depending on when this comes out, I actually filmed the I have a free webinar that's going to be on my website that kind of exposes you to it. It just kind of talks about, hey, look, these are a couple of things that you can uh, look forward to if this is something that you're interested. And if they're like, whoa, those couple of things that you talked about are really cool, I want more. Then the Space Nurse Academy will go more in depth into the physiology because I can't teach you how to talk engineering language until you understand what microgravity does to the whole body. So I have to teach you, okay, did you know that the eyeballs flatten and it affects their vision? And did you know that fluid goes from the legs to the head? Like those kind of things and that people don't know. And then I could talk about life support, and then I could talk about NASA standard 3001 and what NASA wants. And then we could say, okay, now that you know all that, let's talk about human in the loop training, right? Which is a word that nurses don't know, but they do all the time. So that's kind of like my ambition with that.
It's incredible. Again, like I said, you're the first person who I've actually come across that's vocalized this and is doing something about it. Because we always say space is for everyone, but we have so much work to do in terms of educating people about ways they can get involved, apart from just the simple traditional paths that we know of that you were mentioning about becoming an engineer. As we want to expand space and the space industry and space travel, go to the moon, settle on the moon, go to Mars. Like you said, we're going to need all these different perspectives. And a nurse brings a really critical point of view when it comes to taking care of people when they go on these space tourism flights or once they become longer flight durations. I think apart from just having a physician's perspective, having a nurse's perspective will also be critical and empowering people who are interested in this field to kind of learn about it and have a space to grow from is critical. When I started Ignited Thinkers, one of the main things was I feel like there wasn't a place where students could just get information. And I think as long as a spark just goes in your mind, you'll chase it. But if you don't have that initial spark that ignites you and excites you about this industry, it makes you believe that you can do it, it's really hard to believe it. But once you do, you're just not going to let it go. And I think that's exactly what your academy is going to do is once a nurse comes across it and they're like, oh my God, Christine's doing this. Christine's like talking about this. I can do it too. It just becomes like this spark that I think can inspire so many nurses and aspiring nurses to think about this unique perspective in their education and how to contribute to the industry. So Once again, so excited for how this will play out, and I'm rooting for you, and I hope you'll soon find a large community of nurses who are excited about this.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I know that it's funny because I would definitely, using my experience in being interested and then being like, wait, we should probably be more involved in this to find the training is so like it's all over the place, right? So a lot of the training is behind the closed door of you have to be a resident, like a third year resident, to even come to this fellowship or whatever. So a lot of it is boom, 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 closed door, right? I've had to kind of like piece together things here and there, and I don't want people to have to go through that like I did. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of just trying to like put everything in one place, maybe, so people don't have to struggle like I did.
I love that. And, in this journey of yours, whether it be, and, kind of backtracking actually just a little bit before I ask about, some challenges you've had, is I am curious. You briefly touched on this in one of your responses. You were like, I was always interested in space. And, you just kind of follow this path. And clearly it's a difficult uphill battle almost figuring out these different doors to get into, getting your foot in the door in these aerospace medicine rooms. What motivated you to enter the space sector? You said you were always an enthusiast, but was there a moment when you were a little kid that inspired you? Was it a movie, a book? Like, what was your aha moment that your passion for aerospace that led you to do all of this and combine it with your career as a nurse? Like, what was that moment?
I'm gonna tell you something kind of funny. My aha moment, if you're talking about like what inspired me to for space in general, I'm an avid, well, maybe not as much anymore because of I'm so busy, but I'm a big like video gamer. So one of my favorite, yeah, I know everybody's like, "Ah." One of my favorite video games of all time is Mass Effect. And I don't know if you know Mass Effect, but Mass
No, I'm
Effect is a
actually not a big video game person, but I this is the first time I've heard of it, so now I'm excited. I'll research about it.
Mass Effect is awesome because it's a role playing, it's like a third person role playing game. And essentially you are without going too much into the game, it's set in a very far future, right? And so it's an action game and there's aliens and we have to save the whole world by getting us to work together. So that at the end there's like a final battle with the aliens and you can make choices and all that stuff. Anyway, it's a great game. So this is something that was my first exposure to start like looking up at the sky, right? And it's not behind me, it was in another video, but I actually have a telescope. And I made my husband buy it for me. It's actually a pretty good one that actually like rotates with the earth and like I got some pretty good like pictures of I think the moon is the most impressive thing because it's so close. It's not one that has like a really far magnification, but I was able to see the moon. Um, and I think it's powerful enough to see like the bigger planets. Like I was able to see Jupiter and it's like little four moons. I know there's more moons, but I was able to see four and Saturn I saw. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, so that's Mass Effect is what got me to start paying attention to space. Then I started watching those space shows. I forgot what it was called, but there was one that like every episode was on a different planet. It was like, oh, this episode was is about Mars, this episode is about Jupiter or whatever. And then this episode is about going farther away. And this episode is about the um um that asteroid belt and those kind of things. So I started like really watching those things like I would like just voraciously watch those. So that made me interested there's a lot of different things of space and there's people that are interested in the space the history of space. So I have a nurse friend who loves the history of space and rockets. So he likes, talking about Apollo and all those different things. And he likes going to rocket launches and he likes that kind of stuff. There are people that are interested in like the industry at low Earth orbit. So they like to, you know, look at the walks that they've done and they like to see the astronauts floating and those kind of things in the International Space Station and all the low Earth orbit stuff. Me, Me, girl, I am in 3000. I'm in the year 3000. So in my mind, like the things that interest me are uh 1000 people working in a space station somewhere out in by Jupiter. Like that's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in, which is part of the reason why I'm already kind of like looking to, the longer missions. Because right now there are people that are like, yeah, but like we don't need that. And I'm like, okay, no problem. We don't need it now. We don't need it right at this very moment, but they're starting to talk about it and we need to be part of the conversation. So that's kind of where I was. So that the aha moment to come around and answer your question, the aha moment was me really liking sci-fi and like really far future. Like I like Mass Effect, which is a game that's far in the future and it has its own lore already. So by the time you get dropped into the game, a bunch of stuff has happened already, and they're not gonna spoon feed it to you, right? Another thing that's like that is Dune. So you know how they have the Dune movies now. So I read the Dune books. I think I read like the first four, which are pretty much where Paul's story ends after four. And Dune is another one where by the time you start reading Dune, there's a whole language. Like they're not gonna spoon feed the lore of Dune to you. You have to like find it, right? So that actually is like the coolest part to me. So just being an avid like sci-fi nerd and loving that kind of stuff that like far into the future that we don't even know what Earth is, like we're so far ahead. That's the kind of stuff that I like.
I love that. And I think so many people can relate with it. I think for me, although I never credit it to this, I watched The Martian when I was really young, and that was like the first space movie that I was like, whoa, this would be so cool to go live on Mars and to grow my own potatoes and, to have a farm. And so then I started thinking about space, and I think it's really amazing, like the power of media, film, and just like art in general. Music for inspiring people to enter this field. I think many times it's these visual components and like this interaction experiences, whether it be fictional or unrealistic, it just kind of gets us thinking about all these things. Like we're starting to invent stuff that in Star Trek were only imaginary objects. It's amazing how much media influences the way we innovate and we think and we explore as humanity. And so I'm glad to hear about that experience. Clearly, it had like an effect on you, and you were able to continue and push this into your career and integrate it and do what you're doing now, chasing your dreams. So it's amazing to hear. In this
You know what
journey
I
of
really
yours, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
I hear something that you say and then I'm like, oh, I want to say, you know what's funny about what you mentioned about The Martian? The Martian I really liked watching because in The Martian, NASA is like humongous. NASA's like a superpower. So NASA has the power to do this and that, and this is like a super NASA. So I'm like, man, I wish NASA was like that. Like, I wish we had that NASA. We would be so like far ahead. I think NASA right now only gets like a certain like not even 1% of our like taxes.
Budget.
It's like
Yeah.
a 0.01% or something of the budget. If NASA got, I think I remember Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, if NASA got the full 1%, we probably would be on Mars right now.
Yeah, no,
And in
it's shocking.
yeah, yeah. And in the other since you mentioned that, Interstellar was another one that I liked so much. And the reason why is because in Interstellar, they went into the black hole. And so at that point, I had already known what we know and what we don't know. So when he was like about to enter the black hole, I was literally like on my seat and I'm like, what's he gonna see in there?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love movies and the way they depict it just really piques, I think, a lot of curiosity, which is why I think people who are in this industry truly are like, so they like love this space and they love space exploration and they love what they're doing. And I think, your passion really shines through this screen as you're talking. So it's very evident that you were also pulled into this field. And I have to agree. Definitely, if anyone hasn't watched The Martian or Interstellar, that should be on their next watch list.
Watch it. Yep.
Yeah, but again, about your point also about the federal budget and how NASA receives so little, I think there's a lot of we get about funding and investing in space exploration. But I think if people actually took the time to read what the budget goes to, even in NASA, that tiny percent that we get, much of it goes back down to helping people on day-to-day things, people would be shocked. The technology that we have, both medically and non-medically, that we use that comes from space is, you'd be shocked at the number of things. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but I think the general public, that narrative, we're slowly starting to change it. But I think we have to do, and we can do a better job of explaining what the space industry is about and the outcomes that we as humanity get from investing in space. Definitely, totally agree. And a question I really wanted to ask you was about your obstacles as well. I think a lot of times someone can see your story and your journey so far and the building the Space Nurse Academy and what you're all doing and this vision that you have. I think it's so easy to be like, oh, she just knew what she was doing from day one. But I'm sure the journey was a lot more difficult than maybe what it may seem like on LinkedIn or on social media. Curious, did you have any obstacles in your journey? And more importantly, if you did, how did you overcome them? What advice would you give for others who may be going through similar obstacles or challenges that you have faced?
There's a couple of so there's like more like obvious article obstacles. Like my mother passed away a few years ago and she had a really bad illness. She had ALS. So she kind of it was hard to see her who was like once like vibrant and she just kind of like withered away, right? So that was hard. That's like a more like glaring obstacle. I think that that obstacle in particular, and I don't want to say help me, right? Because I want my mom, not this. But it I would say that it kind of pushed me because someone like her who was so full of life and she was such like a rock for all of us, if she is able to just get sick, like we don't know where it came from. It's not like it runs in her family. They it just happened to her. And if one day she's good and she's like looking forward to like the future, and then she gets sick, and then 2 years later she passes away, it could happen to anybody, man. I when I was like in the trauma bay, I would see that all the time. The stories that I would hear was, oh, we were on vacation and we were just on the boat, and the boat just exploded, right? And 1 second you're okay, and 1 second you're not. So that kind of pushed me to be like, okay, I want to do this. I'm gonna stop like pretending like I want to do other stuff. I want to do this, so I'm just gonna do it and figure it out. So that was one. The other one that's like more insidious, I would say, is and one that a lot of I guess from what I've been reading, one that a lot of women have is imposter syndrome. And so especially when you're entering a field that nobody else or not many people are like you tend to feel like, why am I here? Right? Like, like,
Exactly.
does anybody care what I have to say? I will give credit though to some of the programs that I did. The NASA space program when I did it, they were so welcoming, man. When I went in there, I think I made a comment like I'm just a nurse or thank you for letting me in, like thank you so much, like I won't you won't regret it or whatever, something. I don't know. I made probably made a comment to somebody and they looked at me like I was like, what are you talking about? Like, well, we're so glad to have your perspective, right? In there. And when I went to double IAS, it's a lot of engineers that go there. So it's a lot of like math that I haven't seen. I remember one time they made a comment like, "Oh, this is simple 10th grade trigonometry or something," and I was like, "Ah, trigonometry, haha." Like, but anyway, so all that to say is that they want us there. You think that they don't, but when you get into these circles, the space double IS, and when I was in Space Life Research, they were so welcoming. One of them was like, "My mom is a nurse. Like, we need you guys. Like, thank you for coming. We appreciate you, and we want your perspective." They really want us there. So I feel like it was more welcoming than I thought it would be. We're so used to like, and, in nursing, we kind of like, not saying we because I don't do that, but there's a saying that like nurses eat their young. So we're kind of hard on like the next generation of nurses because it's such a high stakes environment and it's like you either get with it or people die. When to walk into a situation where they're like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, it's great, especially when you don't expect that. It's great. So I think those are the two big obstacles that I've overcome, and I think I'm stronger for it.
I love that. Those two are just perfect. I think the first starting off, I mean, I want to say like sorry, I'm sorry to hear about your mom, but also what you took away from that, I think is something we tend to overlook. I think recently I also saw some news of like a young person passing away, and I was just thinking to myself, and it was like a car accident that it wasn't even their mistake, it was someone else's fault. And I was just thinking to myself that, you never know. I think especially being in the medical field as a nurse, you probably see it on a day-to-day basis. You don't know where life will take you at every minute. And so you should be grateful for the time that you do have, and being able to do whatever speaks to you, whatever you want to do. It's so important to follow that because you just don't know how much time you have left. And so I think that is a really powerful message. And sometimes when you're on the younger side, you tend to forget that. But I think that's definitely really good advice. And also your second one about imposter syndrome. I think it's impossible, I think, for anyone not to feel it at some point in their career. If anyone has not, I would love to meet them because I'd love to learn about what they've done to not feel that. But I think it's, so evident, especially in this new field, like you were saying, when you don't see a lot of your peers who are maybe nurses who do this, and you're kind of the first one, you talk about it, and people are like, "Oh, is that like real? Like, what is that?" And you kind of do feel a little bit like, "Oh, I have to like know everything about this, or I maybe I'm not good enough for this. Is this even something I should invest my time in?" A lot of questions come, especially when you have so many responsibilities with a full-time job, being a mom. It's a lot. And so what you're doing and what you've been able to learn from that it's really, I think a lot of people can relate to, but also remind themselves that, you should follow your passion because time is short, but also don't feel that imposter syndrome because there are communities there who do want to support you and do want to hear you. And everyone starts from someplace. No one's born knowing everything in the world. That's what my mom always tells me. So she's like, don't be afraid because you don't know something. Someone else is, they, at some point, nobody else knew that either. So you're learning, and that's what's important.
That's right.
And so now that we're able to learn a little bit about your journey, as well as kind of what got you here, as well as your research, I am a little bit curious from your perspective, being a nurse and entering this field, seeing this industry from a few different perspectives. How do you see the aerospace industry changing in the next 5 to 10 years? What are your predictions of the good things, the bad things, things that we should be excited about, but also wary about, things we should, keep in the back of our mind? I'm curious. What are your thoughts about the future of this industry?
The cool thing about this industry is that it's changing rapidly. So now there's a big push for commercial space, which is gonna blow up. Like if you see every article, it's like, oh, the $1 trillion commercial space industry, and there's new companies and new players popping up uh with different like priorities and things like that. So what I see is just a big boom, and there being like opportunities all over the place. One of the things that I'm wary of, and that's why I'm so thankful to you and to any other organization that has a big like space for all kind of like mission statement, is that it's starting to become very like, pay $1 million to get on this, ship, and then we'll, without like saying anything, against anybody. I'm starting to kind of see that like it could turn in the direction of uh, how can we capitalize on space and how can we monetize on space? And I'm just afraid that, obviously competition breeds innovation, right? But or at least that's what they say, that's what we hope. But um we just have to like make sure that, we still do good science, and we still um kind of open it to more perspectives so that it doesn't become like, you know, these three companies have claim to space and that's it, right? And in order to get to space, you have to go through them. I think that's just the only thing that I'm afraid of. And I think the general public sees, celebrities and rich people going to space, and they're like, that's what that is, and that's not what it should be. And I think if we just really like pay attention to that and never lose sight of making sure um, that it's not something space shouldn't be owned by anybody. It should be like you say, and like we all, for everybody. So as long as there are still opportunities for, people that probably don't have the capital to get up there can still go up there and do science, or they can still contribute their perspective. I think that's really the important thing, and that's kind of what I think. I That's part of why I want the space nurse to be in the aerospace industry also, because they're going to need that person-centered care. I mean, in commercial space, it's no longer going to be we're sending the fit people up there, right? Government space is okay, let's do like a 2 year physical check and psychological check and all these things to send the very fittest up to space, right? Eventually it's going to be okay, who has who has the money to go, right? They sent William Shatner to space, right? It's not going to be the fittest of us anymore. And because of that, we need to start looking into okay, more medical things are going to happen. Um Recently today or yesterday, my days blur together, but recently they were talking about that they're going to have to bring the ISS. It's either an astronaut or all of them. I'm not sure. I think it's just one. They're going to
I believe
have
it's
to
all of
bring them
them.
back,
Yeah.
all of them. So they're going to have to bring them back because of a stable medical emergency, right? And so that's another thing that we have to consider is that even with all of their planning, right? And this is the first time that's ever happened. Even with all of their planning, something still happened, right? And they know everything that did happen, will happen, and could happen, and they still have to probably scrub that mission. So with all of their planning, that still happened, and so these are things that we have to be prepared for. They are like the brightest scientists in the world, but things still happen. So we have to be, I don't know. I kind of went off on a tangent, but we have to be cognizant of that and just have more perspectives. Uh,
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think with both aspects of what you're excited about and what you're wary of is something that I think a lot of people in this industry can echo. So I really hope we continue to emphasize the inclusivity part of space because we're all in space and we all can see space. We all look up into the night sky and no one owns it. So I think it would be great if we can continue to kind of foster that innovation and that love for this industry without making it seem like it's only for a certain group of people. So definitely, I echo what you are saying. My last and final question for you, which I've asked almost every single person who's been on this show, is if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would that advice be? It could be related to your career, life, just really anything, something if you could just go back in time and time travel and tell your younger self something, what would it be?
um, I definitely the thing that comes to my mind is I would tell my younger self, don't wait for anybody. So I think I was always interested in space, and when I became a nurse, I was like, there's no space, and this was like in 2015, right? So there were rumblings about space nursing, but there was nobody doing anything at that time. And I was like, okay, what could be my path to it so that I can tailor my career for that? And literally that's what I did, right? Tailor my career for that. So hopefully when I get to that level, there will be something for space nurses and then I could do that, right? So I have like this long, like this 10-year career where I kind of focused on critical care and the sickest of the sick, right? And then I did some flight nursing because that's like the closest to space, right? At least that's what I tell myself. And I got out, I kind of like turned back towards, is there any space nursing yet? And the idea of space nursing that I had there it didn't exist, right? So then I was just kind of like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. So I kind of um sat there for a bit and I was like, I guess because once nurses reach a certain level in our minds, there's certified registered nurse anesthetist or there's nurse practitioner school, right? And I realized that I did have a passion for psych nurse practitioner, so I went to school for that, and I'm almost finished with that. Um, but as I started to get more into the space industry and like talking to people, um, I was just kind of like, I don't know, I'm just gonna do it myself. I was like sick of waiting for people. But do you understand that if I had just not waited for anybody, I would have had 10 years under my belt of this already. Maybe I would have helped make something. Who knows? But anyway, I think definitely just don't wait for others. Just do it yourself, is what I would tell myself.
That's amazing. I think that's the best way that just encapsulates your personality and the way you're pioneering your own space and making space for other nurses to enter this field is honestly incredibly inspiring for me. And I'm sure every single person who's listening. As I said, you're the first space nurse that I've interviewed, and it really was cool to be able to hear your perspective and very insightful to just hear from your own words what that diverse perspective a nurse does bring to the table. And I hope others who are listening who may not be a nurse can also understand your point of view and make sure that this is something that does come in their mind as they're starting to think about the next frontier of aerospace medicine. So thank you so much, Christine, for sharing your story. You are bursting with energy, and I just can't wait to meet you in person one day. I'm so excited to see where the Space Nurse Academy will go. So thank you so much for making time to do this interview.
Thank you so much. If anybody is interested at thespacenurse.com, you could go to, you can subscribe and I have a newsletter that you could get like opportunities I post all the time. I have a blog. Eventually, when I get my life together, I'll get a podcast. Who knows? And then there's also like the free webinar that's coming out um that you can watch and send me an email. We'll work together, anything. So thank you so much.
So yes, I'll link your social media down below so that people can contact you and learn about more about what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.